Thank you, Mr Speaker. It is a privilege to rise in support of this motion and to thank and congratulate His Excellency the Governor for opening the 54th Parliament of South Australia. I also take this opportunity to congratulate you, Mr Speaker, on your election to such an important office. I am humbled and privileged to represent the people of Finniss. Finniss has a unique and special place in the history of South Australia. For uncounted centuries, it has been the territory of the Ramangiri people. For millennia, the land provided an abundance of food and resources to support their society. Their culture was rich and enduring. As we all know, British settlement brought a very different culture to the land, with tragic results for the Ramangiri way of life. The impact is strongly felt to this day. This is something we must all acknowledge, and our actions in this place must reflect its importance. An important date in our history, Mr Speaker, is the 8th of April 1802. It's the day British explorer Matthew Flinders had his encounter with French explorer Nicolas Baudin. Finniss is where this encounter took place. As we know, Flinders named the location Encounter Bay. Finniss is also where another British explorer, Charles Sturt, reached the end of the River Murray. The explorations of Flinders and Sturt led to the settlement of South Australia. But it was in Finniss where the people of European origin first started living and working. These first visitors were whalers and seal hunters. Whaling is offensive today and was abhorrent to many even then. But it was a thriving global industry in those much less enlightened times. And it was vigorously pursued around Encounter Bay and Kangaroo Island for a generation before the arrival of the buffalo and the proclamation of South Australia. The contrast with today could not be starker, Mr Speaker. The value of whales to Encounter Bay lies not in slaughter but in tourism. Many thousands of people visit the South Coast every year to watch these majestic animals in their ancestral waters as they gradually recover from the brink of extinction to which our own ancestors brought them. Speaking of proclamation and the years which followed, Mr Speaker, it's only by a turn of fate that I'm delivering this speech in Adelaide and not in the electorate of Finniss. The electorate is named after Travis Finniss, South Australia's first Premier. He began his career in the colony as one of Colonel Light's surveyors. Light was set on Adelaide as the colony's capital. Governor Hindmarsh did not agree and argued for Encounter Bay with its proximity to the Murray mouth. Light set Finniss to survey the area, and he reported it was poorly suited for settlement. However, Hindmarsh suggested the report had already been dictated by Light. It's a historical irony that Finniss sought to trash the reputation of area which now bears his name. This was an argument which raged for more than a century, during which communities like Goolwa, Port Elliot and Victor Harbour firmly established as working ports. They transferred goods transported down the Murray for shipment to domestic and foreign markets, using Australia's first ever public railway to do so. The steam train, the Cockle train, still runs today. Adelaide won out, of course, but in the earliest days of the colony, it was certainly not a certainty by any means. And it was in those very early days that my ancestor, William Basham, arrived in the district. The son of a convict transported to Van Diemen's Land, he bought property near Adelaide in the late 1830s, where Hindmarsh Stadium stands now, actually. But soon after, he took his family to the South Coast. My family has always been in the district from that date, Mr Speaker. Our family first began dairy farming in Hindmarsh Valley in 1848, and we've been associated with the industry ever since. We established a butter factory, a flour mill in those very early years, remnants of which survive even now. My family moved into Pleasant Blank's property next to what is now called Basham's Beach in 1856. It had been built by South Australian's governor at the time, Sir Richard MacDonald. It's still in the family today, Mr Speaker. The Bashams grazed their dairy cows in the lands around Pleasant Banks for generations, lands which now make up the townships of Middleton and Port Elliot. My family are very much locals of the district, and so am I. After being born in Victor Harbour, my first home was in Middleton, and my first school was in Port Elliot. I was just 7 when my parents, Judy and Roger, purchased the current family farm at Mount Compass. I remember it quite well because Stormboy was being filled at the time. A new community meant a new school, the Mount Compass Area School, after which I boarded at St Peter's College and then attended the University of South Australia. But the call of farming was never too far off. And I went back to Mount Compass in 1989, where I've been dairy farming ever since. The family farm has been my life, my career and my home, Mr Speaker. It's where I watched my father work hard as the Vice President of the South Australian Dairy Farmers Association, developing my own strong interest in representing the state's dairy producers. When my parents retired, I took over the farm in 2006. I was already heavily involved in the dairy industry representation at the local level. With fellow dairy farmers in the district, I formed the Fleuro Dairy Farmers Collective Bargaining Group in response to poor-performing local milk companies, paying farmers below the cost of production and less than the world price. In response to this obvious market failure, we received the ACCC authorisation to sell milk as a group. This was unprecedented for Australia's dairy industry and had a lasting impact nationwide. Milk prices rose not only on the Fleuro, but all across the nation. It was an amazing outcome, and it was not long afterwards that I became president of the South Australian Dairy Farmers Association, closely following in my father's footsteps. SADA has been a great organisation to serve over the years, Mr Speaker. While I was president, we were successful in getting every dairy region drought declared during the terrible year that was 2007. No dairy region in South Australia had ever been declared before. And in 2013, we developed and launched Starter Fresh Milk brand. It was a monumental effort to provide South Australians with a tangible way to support their local dairy industry. It started with a meeting in the office of Honourable Robert Brokenshire, himself a dairy farmer at Mount Compass, including John Durkin from Coles and my friend and colleague, former SADA CEO Ken Lyons. Ken is in the gallery today, and it's great to be able to acknowledge the critical role he played. Together we developed one of the most popular milk brands in the state. It provides income for our dairy farmers and supports local research and development for the industry. Starter Fresh milk can also be found on the supermarket shelves in China, Mr Speaker. This was a pet project of mine, long before the China-Australia Free Trade Agreement was finalised. We wanted to prove such a thing could be done. I only had to visit China once before I took several trips to meet with buyers in Sydney. I remember Googling the protocols of meetings with Chinese businessmen over lunch and the need to have waiters translate conversations because they were the only ones who spoke both languages. I also distinctly remember that it was on the Mount Compass farm where my interest in politics was first sparked by a visit from the local member of Alexandra, the Honourable Ted Chapman. Ted represented the seat with distinction for almost 20 years. He served as the Minister for Agriculture and Forests in the Tonkin government. And he paved the way for his notable successes in what became the seat of Finniss. I acknowledge the presence of Ted's daughter, the member for Bragg, in this place. I'm confident that Ted would be immensely proud of her achievements in becoming the first woman in South Australia to hold the office of Deputy Premier and Attorney General. Ted's successors also served the people of Finniss with distinction. The electorate has given me a singular honour in following them. The Honourable Dean Brown AO had already served as Member of Parliament for many years before becoming the member for Alexandra in 1992 and then Finniss in 1993. He has left a considerable legacy to our state, particularly his service as Premier of South Australia. I thank him for his support and guidance to me over the years. I also thank my immediate predecessor, Michael McGelly. As many in this place would acknowledge, Michael would not hesitate to confront friend or opponent alike, sometimes in the strongest terms, with the truth as he saw it. However, there was another side to Michael that a few people saw. This was the unmatched compassion for constituents who needed his help. He often went to extraordinary lengths for them. Sometimes he went to unbelievable lengths. Michael understood a simple truth in this respect. Politics is first and foremost about people. His support and advice have been very helpful to me, particularly during a whole year of campaigning. I'll mention one more representative of the area, Mr. Speaker. The first single member of Alexandra, George Connor. He was the president of the organised Dairymen's Association of South Australia. So it would appear Finniss has come in a full circle. I had only been president of the Australian Dairy Farmers for a brief time when Michael told me he would not be contesting the 2018 election. Another simple truth about politics, timing is everything. So I decided to put my hand up as a candidate. It turned out the timing was good, Mr. Speaker. For this, I must also thank and congratulate the new Premier of South Australia, Stephen Marshall. He has been the leader of the Liberals for more than 5 years, persevering through volatile polls and the narrow loss at the 2014 election. As opposition leader, he presented a true alternative government for the people of South Australia. He developed genuine policies and held the previous government to account at a time when government accountability was at its worst. He ensured the Liberal Party remained an effective voice for our state, regional and rural and remote communities at a time when they were increasingly ignored. And he led us to victory in a most unprecedented election contest, never losing sight of the need for change in South Australia. I'm very fortunate and immensely proud to represent the best electorate in South Australia as the member of the Marshall Liberal government. Finniss is a beautiful place, Mr. Speaker. Amazing beaches, rolling green hills, and a well-tilled countryside bask in a lovely climate. Finniss has thriving communities where so many people are always working to make it better every day. It's been a holiday playground for South Australians since the 1800s. In summer and on long weekends, the roads are full of visitors. Surfers come to the coast all year round, chasing waves they can't find on city beaches. And so many South Australians have trodden the causeway between Victor Harbour and Granite Island. It's the people and the communities of Finniss which make me most proud to represent the electorate. I should note that it is one of the fastest growing regions in South Australia. In the past 10 years, the population of Victor Harbour has increased by 47%. Goolwa has grown by 31%, and Mount Compass by a whopping 61%. They're not all coming here to retire, Mr. Speaker. They're coming here to live, work and raise families, and to enjoy the unique lifestyle the region has to offer. They're industrious, committed, welcoming and friendly. The people of our region embody the term community spirit. They truly care about their neighbours and their town, Mr. Speaker. They strongly support their local businesses. They don't hold back when engaging with their elected representatives at any level of government. They take a keen interest. This was something I already knew, but which was driven home again and again as I door-knocked the electorate. I'm confident the people of Finniss will place myself, the Marshall Liberal government, under a high level of scrutiny. They've been waiting for a state government which considers regional and rural South Australian communities no lesser important than Adelaide. They've been waiting for a government which listens to regional communities, which allows them the autonomy to make their own decisions about what is best for them in terms of health, education or natural resource management. I welcome the scrutiny of the people of Finniss because they have placed enormous trust in me and this government. Another important feature of Finniss is that it sits at the very end of Australia's largest river system, the Murray-Darling. The Murray is our state's most important natural resource, supplying water to communities from Paringa in the east to Ceduna in the west, including Adelaide itself. The river is critical to the future of South Australia. To ensure the survival and the recovery of the Murray-Darling, we must disregard state borders and dispense with the politics as well. We must work together. Finniss is, finally, an electorate and a region with great potential. With the right support, the right infrastructure, and above all, the right vision, our region will grow into much more than it is today. There's a lot of room for more all year round and more diverse tourism offering. Tourism will always be a major industry in Finniss. I'm looking forward to working with councils, businesses and other stakeholders to grow and modernise it, offering more and more visitors unique experiences they will always remember. However, as a farmer, I see great potential in agriculture industries of Finniss. The region enjoys rainfall that is usually more reliable and abundant than many areas of the state. It enjoys good soils and the closeness to export links in Adelaide. I have a vision for agriculture in the region: greater diversity and more commodities, high value, low volume exports, value adding, finished food and beverage products, and fresh produce that is safest and cleanest in the world, produced under a famous regional brand. I see an agricultural industry in Finniss which could offer huge employment opportunities, and people could come from all over the world for the unique food and wine experiences. I see Finniss being a home for cutting-edge agricultural research and development, and where schools offer opportunities for education and careers in the sector. Because there's no important industry in the world than agriculture, Mr. Speaker. It produces one thing that everyone needs: food. It has been one of the most important economic contributors to our state since its proclamation, and its biggest contributor today. Grain, wool, wine, beef, dairy, seafood and citrus are among our most important and lucrative South Australian exports. In quality terms, they are among the best in the world because our farmers are among the best in the world. They're innovative, they're resilient, and they deserve the recognition and support I'm confident the Marshall Liberal government will deliver. I hope I've provided a glimpse of the journey I've taken to get here, Mr. Speaker. This is not a journey I've taken alone. I've had the support of my colleagues in this place, the people who I've worked with in the dairy industry over the years, and the Liberal Party of South Australia. I've been fortunate to have the support of a great local team of Liberal Party members and volunteers in Finniss, who put in a tremendous effort during a year-long campaign. I've had the support and guidance of close friends. I thank all of them, some of who are in the gallery with us today. Most importantly, I've been lucky with two great inspirations in my life. My father, Roger, and my grandfather, Buddy. Both men of the land, dedicated to family, great thinkers, hard workers, decent and compassionate. They provide the best role models I could have hoped for. And I couldn't be prouder to follow in their footsteps. Above all, I've had the strongest support from love from my family. To my amazing wife and partner, Kate, I couldn't have done this without your unwavering support, hard work, sacrifice, advice and love. And to my beautiful daughters, Evie and Annabelle, it's for you, more than anyone, that I come here to work for a safe and prosperous future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.